do not have a panacea in Savannah, but this approach of collaborative, first of all, it evolved from a task force to a loose-knit group of organizations working together through these action teams that I've described, the 80 organizations participating, with business really at the table saying poverty reduction is economic development, and working within the areas. So within transportation saying we need to look at how to get folks from the poverty census tracts that are in workforce development programs over to the technical college, or how to get them over from those poverty census tracts to the employment sites, or the child care, looking at the hospitality industry and saying, what is it that you need? And we heard from them that one of the top areas of retention was child care. And so we've been working with them in developing a downtown child care facility. So really, but this is where Step Up has matured over the last 4 years. At the beginning, we got involved with running some programs, which actually took us out of the convener collaborator role. You need to have an independent agency which is really functioning as the, I guess, central point that all the other folks can look at as not a threat. So we're not competing with them for resources. We're not trying to run programs. We're trying to highlight what other nonprofit organizations are doing. And we're trying to bring the business community in to help us to do that. So this year, actually, we formalized our collaborative with an official signing ceremony. And we had the head of the Chamber of Commerce, and let me describe my board of directors. My board of directors, and actually the organizational structure. I'm actually based at the Chamber of Commerce. I'm a city employee. We've got 5 staff right now, 2 that are county employees, another person is a city employee, and 2 that are chamber employees. The United Way acts as our fiscal agent, but I'm like at the chamber. So we're a bit of everything, and that has been good in a lot of ways, and it's been challenging in some ways as well. We're looking at actually formalizing the organizational structure now. But the board of directors is actually the head of Georgia Power for our area, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, the head of the Economic Development Authority, the mayor, the chairman for the county commission, the head of the United Way, the head of our Savannah Technical College, the head of the newspapers for Savannah. We've got a very strong group of folks that are at the helm, the superintendent for the schools. And we can't forget folks that are in the poverty census tracts and making sure that they're involved. So we've got 2 neighborhood leaders. We're actually moving into a new organizational structure which have all those folks, but they're going to have some nonprofit leaders. And we're actually going to be making a third of our board that will always be residents from the neighborhoods that we're working with. So we just had an official signing ceremony about a month ago where we invited all the 80 organizations that have been involved with Step Up. And so businesses, nonprofits, government, they all came, and we asked for the heads, the executive directors, and the board chairman for those organizations. And there, it wasn't me getting up front and saying, this is what we need you to do. The head of Georgia Power got up and said, this is why we're here. This is why we need you to be here. This is why I'm here as the head of Georgia Power. The head of the chamber got up and said, this is what Step Up is going to do. We're going to be a convener. We're going to be focusing on evaluation. We're going to be focusing on communications. This is what we're doing. And then we had the mayor stand up, which he's very good at doing, and saying, this is what we want you to do. You know, we want you to be sharing your data with us. We want you to be working with throughout the action teams. We need you at the table in order to have a different impact.
Can you identify maybe your favorite action that's resulted from these conversations so far in terms of an initiative, a new initiative that wouldn't have happened before until you started this project?
I think probably with the poverty simulations, without a doubt. I have to mention the poverty simulations.
Go for it.
What
are the poverty simulations?
Poverty simulations was a tool that was identified by the business community. The Georgia Power helped us purchase a couple of these kits, and we bought it for an organization in Missouri, and the University of Georgia helped us to bring them to Savannah with the funding from Georgia Power. And basically, they're these large kits. It's kind of like a Monopoly board inside. And so you, maybe in a room 3 times the size of this room, you open up the kit, and you've got all these bundles within that kit. And around the perimeter of the room, you put 15 volunteers, 15 tables. And you've got your community action agency, you've got your hospital, you've got your local employer, you've got the school, the child care agency. You've got all the different parts of a community, the local employer. Then you have in the middle, and then all the packets and the 15 volunteers take up those stations and they read what they're supposed to be doing. Then we have the folks that are actually going through the poverty simulation come into the room. And in the room, in the middle of the room, we'll have groupings of chairs. And so maybe you've got a single grandparent raising 3 grandchildren. Maybe you've got 2 parents raising 1 child. Maybe you've got an elderly person by themselves. So a lot of different folks, just typical families. And there's packets describing those families. Then the participants come in, and those participants are generally who we've targeted for the last 4 years. We've had about 2,500 people go through these simulations. Business community really come in and they simulate what it's like to be in poverty. They open up their packets, and so you got the head of the chamber that is actually the grandparent. You got the head of Georgia Power, maybe, who is the grandchild. And they simulate what it's like living in poverty. And so basically their task, it's a 2-hour exercise. The actual exercise itself is 1 hour, and their task is to survive that 1 hour, which is broken into 15-minute weeks. The whole exercise simulates a month. They're supposed to survive in poverty for a month. And so they take their kids to school. They get a check. If they don't have a bank account, they got to go to the check cashing service. They have to get transportation passes. They have to actually do everything that we all have to do every day, that folks without the resources have to do, which is especially hard for them. And it's a real eye-opening exercise. I'm very impressed with this. In fact, when I came from Miami, where I was working last on similar issues, here, and I heard about these simulations, and I said, well, it sounds kind of like a bit of a superficial exercise. How much can there really be to this? If you want to see what it's like to be in poverty, volunteer, or go do something. But really, these folks, what we found out, and what we've seen with this, is it really is a rallying call for folks in the business community. They go through the simulation, and then afterwards, they want to get involved. And we talk at the end about a lot of the statistics. We realize that they're kind of holding on to some old information and assumptions about folks in poverty. So we talk to them and we say, look, actually, Savannah's got 70% less welfare coming in, government subsidies. So there's not this huge welfare system anymore. Actually, 60% of folks that are in poverty are working. And so we talk about those things, and they talk about what they went through. They talk about the frustrations that they went through during that 1 hour. And I guarantee if you were to call some of the folks on my board, or some of the folks, the business folks that are involved with this, with Step Up, and ask them, they would remember exactly who they were in that simulation, what it was they were frustrated by, and they've actually got on the phone afterwards and called other CEOs to get them to come through the simulations.
Now,